What's good, everybody? I hope you are having a great day. My name is Solomon Riddell, and today we're talking about one of the biggest, if not the biggest area in chess that players really have a hard time improving in. And I actually do think that this is the most difficult area in chess to improve in because you can't memorize it. Endgame theory, you can memorize. You can memorize how to mate with a king and a rook versus a king. Maybe your king and rook and the opponent's king are on different squares than another board with the same kind of pieces, but it doesn't really matter. The same ideas are there. If you have a king and pawn endgame, there's only so many places the king and pawn can be, right? But if you're talking about the middle game, there are so many different move orders that you could have had. You have knights, you have bishops, you have rooks, you have pawns on top of that, you have the queens. I mean, there's so many pieces flying around, and nearly any chess game that you play, and I'm not talking about Scholar's Mate, I'm not talking about winning a game with a trap in 8 moves. I'm talking about a game that goes 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 moves. It's very rare that you're going to have a game that matches someone else's, right? Nearly every game that you play, no one else has ever played exactly, and no one else will ever exactly play again. The chances and really the possibilities in chess, they're not infinite, but they're up there, right? And it's very rare for 2 games to match. So what I'm trying to say is that in the opening, you can memorize it. You can get the same positions. In the end game, you're getting very similar positions to the point where it doesn't even matter that the position is different. In the middle game, though, it does matter that the position is different quite a bit. And, you can't memorize it, right? In fact, we're going to be looking at a position now, and you will probably never see this position in your own games ever. Right? But what I'm trying to show you guys is how to see a new position, how to see a new position that no one's ever reached, that you never reached, that you'll never reach again, and learn how to evaluate that, how to evaluate a position and form a game plan from there. So when it comes to chess middle game planning, I have 7 things that I look at. The 7th is the game plan, and that really comes out of knowing the first 6 things. Now, the first 6 things here, we're going to compare both sides and see who has the advantage. Number 1, material. Who's up in material? Who's up in material? Now, does a material advantage always mean that you're winning? No, but it usually does. So material is a huge factor that I want us to think about, even if it's a single pawn. Next up, we have king safety. Which side has better king safety? And sometimes neither side has better king safety. Maybe both sides have great king safety. Maybe neither side has great king safety at all, and they're both in great danger. But in general, right, you want to think through, okay, are we about even in this area? Do I have a slight edge? Am I slightly disadvantaged in this position? Next up, we have weaknesses. This can be an isolated pawn, doubled pawns. This can be a hole. This can be a square. This can be a file. It can be a lot of different things. Next up, right, we're talking about potential pawn breaks. And what I talk about a lot is making an impact on your opponent's position with your pawns. A little pawn move that does nothing to your opponent's side, that's not a pawn break. A pawn break is when you change or affect their entire structure or really any part of their structure by your pawn move. Okay, next up, we have current piece activity right now. Is my knight better or worse than their knight? Right now, is my bishop better or worse or about the same as their bishop? And next up, we have potential piece activity. Potential piece activity. Okay, right now we have this kind of activity, but in the future, what kind of ideas do both sides have here? Which bishop potentially can be greater, can be better, right? If you're looking at potential moves, potential plans. And then knowing all that, that will help you form a game plan. So I'm going to show this position here. Okay, now this is a game that I played, and I've actually covered this game on the channel. This is a game that I played in my tournament to reach the National Master title. I went 6-0 with the Hippo. Played it as white and black. If you're interested in my over 6-hour course on the hippopotamus defense, I'll leave a link down below in the description and the pinned comment. But I reached this position coming out of the hippo in this game, right? This is round 5, I believe. And yeah, I'm playing with the black side. These are good things to think about, right? And you don't got to do this every move, but even learning how to train this muscle up, you're going to start just covering this stuff in your head without even having to go through a checklist. But do the checklist from time to time in your own games and really try to improve at these kind of things. So we're going to do it together right now, right? Number 1, material. We're going to go through the whole list. Number 1, material. Which side is better here in terms of material? Neither side. It's tied. It's tied. Now, if black's up material, this has major effects and impacts in terms of how we play. If we're up material, we're going to try to make the game boring. We're going to try to not play risky, and we're going to try to trade down. If we're down material, we're going to try to make the game crazy. We're not going to try to trade down. That simplifies the game. We want to keep everything on the board that we can if we're down material, right? Like if you're playing a gambit, you've probably never heard anyone say, hey, go into a gambit and then just start trading everything down. Just trade as much as you can. That's pretty rare. Now, some openings you can do that, like the Benko Gambit or something, but most gambits, if you sacrifice a pawn, 2 pawns, 3 pawns, 4 pawns, you don't want to trade down. You want to keep pieces on the board. You want to play aggressive and attacking chess. You want to play crazy, right? You don't want to play boring. But in this case here, even material. All right, we just skip on to the next one. King safety. Who has better king safety here? And while I'm asking these questions, you can pause the video and try to think for yourself as well. I'm going to say black does. Now, sure, does white have pieces looking towards our king? Yeah. Right? Does black have a king in the center? Yeah, but having a king in the center doesn't always mean that it's not safe. Sometimes it does. Usually it does, but not always. And the hippo is one of those systems where oftentimes you do keep the king in the center for the long time. Now, again, you're looking at our king, but this is all completely locked up. None of white's pawns here can move. None of ours can move. This king is very safe. Very safe. Is white's king safe? It's not the worst king I've seen, but we do have some good activity with our rook against g2. White has no doubled pawns. We have a pair of double pawns on the f-file. Because of that, we have a semi-open file that white simply doesn't have. Any file you put those rooks on, they're just looking at their own pawn. So I would say that black has the advantage in terms of king safety. Next up, we have weaknesses. What weaknesses does black have here? Gosh, I mean, c6, if you look at squares, that could be considered a weakness, right? No pawns for the rest of this game can cover that spot. What I would also say is that white really can't target it that well. I mean, I don't know how you're going to get a piece there, right? So that's a weakness, but that's not anything that white can target. h5, that's an isolated pawn. That's our weakest pawn, but how is white going to target it? They can't. So I'm not even sure if I'd call that a major weakness now either, right? In terms of it being actually, weak in the sense of your opponent being able to do something about it. Now for white, I would say white's biggest weakness here is g3. g3, that's their biggest weakness. I'd say h4 as well. Really, these dark squares. White doesn't have a dark squared bishop. We do. We have a bishop pair that they don't. This square of g3 is a hole. The bishop can't do anything about it. Never can. The knight can, but that's really your only piece, unless you want to use your queen, which isn't probably going to be the best idea, right? So I would say in terms of weaknesses, g3 is the biggest that we're looking at, right? g3. Now let's look at potential pawn breaks. For black, do we have any potential pawn breaks? Do we have any potential, it doesn't even have to be right now, do we have any potential pawn moves that could make an impact on our opponent's position in a good way? Well, this isn't a pawn break. That doesn't do anything for us. It just gets locked up. Can't move, can't move, can't move. This pawn, you can move it, but then white takes. That helps their activity. That helps their activity. If we push this pawn ever, white takes. We want to improve our pieces while not allowing our opponent to improve theirs. By doing that, did we improve our pieces? Nope. Did we improve white's? Yes. The bishop is a great piece now. Best bishop on the board. And you have a battery ram going after d6. So pushing this pawn to c6 or c5 is a terrible idea. So that's not moving either. Does this pawn or this pawn move? Not really. I mean, I don't see the point, right? Our activity is aimed towards the king side here. Doing this just helps white on the queen side. So if you look at black's pawn breaks here, we don't really have anything. I don't think white does either. Now, you could play a5. That's probably the best pawn break you have. Because this pawn pushing, are we worried about it? No, you're pushing a pawn in front of your king. Are we worried about this pawn? No, you're pushing a pawn in front of your king. Can't move, can't move, can't move. If you ever push this one up, double clamp on that spot. If you ever push this one up, we lock it up. And again, a5 is probably the best thing you have, but if we see that, we could always lock it up. So we're in a good spot there. Now let's talk about current piece activity. Piece activity right now. And let's compare. Which one of these bishops is better? Ours is. Our bishop can see more spots. We're also making that bishop a babysitter to a4. If you leave that pawn, we can just snatch it right off. This bishop right now, it's not that active. It's just not, right? Now, which is better, the knight or the bishop here? I don't think either is that great. Maybe we'll call it a tie right now. Now, you are looking at the queen, but those pawns are stuck. So, I mean, that bishop's not doing that great with all these dark squared pawns. The knight is also not very good either. Now, in terms of which queen is better, I would say ours is. White, you have a little bit of a vision, but it's nothing crazy. And our queen, you know, does have good vision towards the king side. So I would say our queen is a little bit better. The best rook on the board right now, if you look at all 4 rooks, the best rook by far is the rook on g8, by far. By far, not even close, right? And I would say, you know, second and third place would be these 2 rooks, and last place would be the rook on a8. Now, these rooks aren't doing anything. I mean, I wouldn't even consider these great pieces, but at least they're in the center. At least they're there in case things break open. This rook on a8 is still on its starting spot, right? But overall, I would rather have black's rooks here than white's, both of which are looking at pawns that are stuck. Both of those pawns are stuck. They can't do anything. Now, let's think about potential piece activity. This is very important. You don't want to just think about your game plan and your ability to improve your pieces, which is what chess is all about. Improving your pieces, improving your pieces, improving your pieces. You want to think about your opponents as well. Now, in terms of potential activity, which one of these bishops is better? Well, our bishop's kind of on its best spot already. I mean, I don't really know where else you can move that bishop. It's in a great spot. White's bishop, how do you improve it? I don't know. You have 7 pawns on light squares here. Your bishop is a light squared bishop. You can maybe play c3, bring the bishop back, but even then, like, this bishop in general is just not going to be a great piece, unless, of course, we make the mistake of helping them activate it. So I would say the potential activity is in black's favor there. Which one of these 2 pieces has better potential activity? We're not thinking about right now. We're just thinking about in general, right? In general, what's a potential plan? What are some potential ideas that we can think about, right? This is important. You don't want to always just think about, okay, what can I do right now? You want to think about potential ideas that in the future you want to keep bouncing back on. You want to keep thinking about, right? This knight here, potentially, where could it go? Well, we would love that knight to get to c6. If I had to pick a square for the knight, it would be c6. But how do you get there? Well, you'd have to get to b4. Let's work backwards, right? You'd have to get to b4. You'd have to get to a2, c1, right? e2. How are you going to get to e2? Well, you can go to c3. That doesn't work. Okay, let's start over, right? c6. All right, you got to go to b4. What if you try to get to d3? I mean, that's a hard square to get to as well, right? That's a very hard square. So, again, you look at b2, a2, and then here you find, okay, c1, and yeah, I mean, it's just going to be hard for that knight to get to that spot. It's going to be very difficult. You move the knight to f1. Maybe you're able to get it to c4, but if you get it to c4, who cares? I mean, our pawn on c7 is doing a great job of holding all of this together. So this knight's just terrible. It just is. You can't move it to g4. If you move it to f1, those spots are covered. I mean, my opponent just played knight h2, and that knight's not going anywhere from there. Now, this bishop's potential activity. Potentially, what's a good square for that bishop? Potentially. I'd say g3. If you can get that bishop to g3, that's a great spot. The only piece that can get rid of it is the knight. If they get rid of it with the knight, you have a rook following up. So the potential activity for this bishop is way better than the knight. If you think about the queen, our queen could fill into a spot like h4. Great spot. Where's this queen going to go that's active? I don't know. And if you think about rooks, our rook's already great here. Our other rook could end up doubling on the g-file at some point, and we have a great position. So I think in general, our potential piece activity is way better. And what you find here is that if you look at white's pieces, if you try to come up with a game plan for what white should do, you find that there's just nothing they can do. Like, there's just nothing, right? And what that means is that we as black have time. And that's what I was thinking about in this game, right? And in fact, I've worked this position a lot with students, and I'll play as black and I'll have them play as white. And I didn't play a5 in the game. I didn't think it was necessary, but let's just play the move a5 just to show the point. What does white do here? If you move the bishop, you lose your pawn, right? You lose your pawn. Maybe white goes, okay, I'm going to play c3. Let's just say black just goes king f8 and they just keep going back and forth here. What can white do? If you push to b4, black doesn't have to take. They could, but they don't have to. They could just go here. If you play pawn up, all right, here. What does white do here? I have no idea, right? If white takes, all right, we take with our rook. What does white do here? Do you get the knight out? Let's say you try to activate this knight. You try to get it to c4. Okay, you kick our rook back. Then you play rook a1, let's say. Right? I'm just showing if this king goes back and forth. Okay, white now has some ideas, but notice just how long that took. Just how many moves it took for white to get to the point where they had any kind of attacking idea, right? And even in this position here, black's much better. Your knight is not defending g3 anymore. We can throw a rook into that spot, throw our queen into h4. We're in a good place. So let's flip the board here. Let's go back to knight h2, right? This is a position where white really can't do anything, and that's not always the case. There's some positions, there's some games where your opponent has a lot of stuff they can do. There's a lot of stuff you can do. That means neither side has all the time in the world. Here, black has all the time they need. All the time in the world here. And I've actually had private students tell me, okay, in this position, I would take on h3. And I understand that that looks fun. If g takes, you could throw the rook in. You could throw the queen in. It turns out it doesn't work. It doesn't work here. I mean, rook takes g3. If we take with the pawn, we lose our bishop. If we capture back with the queen, the rook activates. We get put in check. We're losing now. We're losing this position, right? So it doesn't work. But generally speaking, if we have a position like this where our opponent can't do anything, that's important to realize. Sometimes you have positions where your opponent can do stuff. They do have ways to improve their pieces. They do have routes that they can take. That's a different situation. But in this kind of situation here, where your opponent can't do anything, why rush? Why not make the tiniest improvements that you can for as long as you can until you sacrifice something, until you find a breakthrough? And the way the game of chess works is you just keep making small improvements, and eventually there's a tactic. That's how it works. If you just keep making small improvements, your opponent's pieces continue to get slightly and slightly worse. They're forced into a slightly more defensive stance each move. Eventually a tactic forms. I've never seen a game where you can improve all of your pieces more and more and more and more in this kind of setup where your opponent can't do anything, and then there's no tactic. Eventually a tactic forms, unless of course you have a fortress, right? Which is, more of an endgame idea. But okay, what do we do here? Knowing that we have all the time in the world, what do we do here? There's no reason to play risky here. There's no reason to go for the craziest win. Let's improve our pieces as much as we can. Now, in the future, bishop takes h3 could be great, but right now there's no reason to do it. Why not improve our other pieces first? Again, what's the best spot for this bishop? g3 is a great square. So here in the game as black, I go 1, 2, and 3. I've had students tell me, whoa, really? I mean, that just takes so long. Who cares, right? It doesn't matter. It's okay, right? It's all good. I mean, is there anything white can do about it? We have all the time in the world. Why not get my bishop to g3? Why not? Right? I mean, we have all the time in the world. Okay, bishop c2 here. How do we improve our pieces again? Queen h4. Queen e2. Now, if I castle, my king's actually less safe. So I play king e7. My king is very safe here in the center. Very safe. I mean, all of white's pawns there cannot move. They can't move at all. They don't have the option. This pawn pushes, double pawn clamp. This pawn pushes, we could lock it up. We could, right? And yeah, with rook d2 here, I ended up going rook g7 and rook g8. Going all the way back to knight h2. That was my plan. I was planning to go 1, 2, 3, put my queen on h4, put my king on e7, and double up rooks, and there's nothing that white can do about it. Just keep slowly improving your position. And this kind of position is way different than the one that we had just a few moves ago, right? Is this position here? Is this better? Or is this better? A or B? Way better for black. Our bishop improved a ton. Our queen got better. Our rook on a8 is now a great attacking force. Our king is safe. The bishop's in the same spot. Nothing wrong with that, right? That's the best square for the bishop. And this is the thing. When you keep slowly improving your pieces, eventually a tactic forms. And here, bishop takes h2 is what I went with, and then bishop takes h3. Now, if you don't take the bishop, let's say you play like, let's just say you take the pawn. No matter where this bishop goes, any of the following spots is mate. We have 6 different moves that are mate in one. So my opponent goes, okay, I'm going to take on h3, and then capture on g1, and queen f2 is played. If you take the rook, right, we capture, fork. Thanks for the rook on d2. So we see the move after rook takes g1 of queen f2 instead. I capture, and here I'm up 3 points of material. I'm up the exchange and a pawn. I play the move of rook to a1 and throw my other rook in there, and this game wraps up pretty quickly. Okay, so I really am passionate about this in terms of helping you improve at the game of chess. I think a lot of players, I see it a lot, where they have a good position and their opponent can't do anything. Even if you, with the advantage, sit there and go back and forth with your king for 10, 15 moves, your opponent can't do anything. They're just stuck. In that situation, there's zero reason to play risky. Okay? Please stop doing that. I mean, there's just no reason to do that, right? No reason. In that kind of case, improve your pieces as much as you can with zero risk. Zero risk. Going back to knight h2, right? Let me find that spot. None of what I did here as black was risky. None of it. There's nothing that was risky at all, right? Just keep slowly improving your pieces. Continue to improve your pieces without giving your opponent counterplay. I didn't want to push this pawn and give them great counterplay earlier on, right? How can I improve my pieces while not letting their pieces become activated based on my moves, right? That's something that's great to think about. I hope you found this helpful. Again, the 7 things that we want to think about: material, king safety, weaknesses, potential pawn breaks, which is really making an impact on your opponent's position, on your opponent's structure in some kind of way. It could be their piece placement, their pawn placement, all that kind of stuff. Then we're looking at current piece activity, potential piece activity, and all of that comes together to form a game plan. And when you look at what you can do and what your opponent can do, your current state, their current state, and what you potentially can do, you're going to figure out who has time here. Do neither of us have time? Do both of us have so many options that we really got to play in a rush? Or do one of us kind of have all the time in the world? And you go from there. I'll see you on the next one. Peace. To finish out, I wanted to give a big shout out to my Patreon community, specifically Walter, Rob, Steve, Rob, Ray, and Roger, and the rest of my Patreon community. Thank you guys for your support. If you haven't checked out the Patreon already, there are some exclusive benefits that you gain by becoming a member. I look forward to seeing you over there, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.